awesome. And then I can just pause it. So many women judge whatever trauma that they had. And it's like, oh, mine wasn't bad enough. Mine wasn't as bad as, and feel guilty for having some wounds that they need to heal and some skills that they need to learn. And they're like judging themselves for that because it's not bad enough, you know? And I'm like, it's number one, it isn't about what happened to you, because we meet all these women who have all these different levels of whatever's happened to them. It is how it affected you. And there is no shame, no guilt, whatever. My father asking me for oral sex was far more traumatizing to me than the act of a brutal rape. It was, who that person was, how that affected me. And there's no shame or judgment about that. And we forget, I think, what I make up is we forget to celebrate our successes. We judge where we come from. We judge our reaction where we come from. And then we look at where we think we should be. And we judge and beat ourselves up about where we think we should be, instead of taking into consideration where we came from and how far we've come from where we have come from, and celebrating those successes and sharing the bridge stories, sharing that how we went from what happened to us and the healing and the self-growth and all the things that we have to do to get to the other side where we can thrive. And during this month of celebrating women in history, I'm just like, let's celebrate her story instead of history. Let's celebrate the women and her story. And when you and I were talking, I'm like, I want you on this month of celebrating her story, because your story, her story is just a wonderful story of that bridge, just in what I know. And I don't know the full thing, just what I learned. I'm like, this is a beautiful spirit. We need to have her. We need to have her. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being here. And whatever part of your story you want to share, man, the floor is yours. And I just welcome you with such love and appreciation.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine. And I am so glad to be here, and that's such a warm welcome. I really stuck on that, like the variety of trauma and how we compare. And, I had to laugh because after we talked last night, I was in my room and I had that old tape play of, was my trauma enough? And I thought, that's ridiculous. Like, I am a survivor of ritualistic sexual abuse that had torture and rape and pornography. Is my trauma enough? Yeah, that's more than enough. That's, more than enough. But I hear that so much. Well, others have it worse, or others, I shouldn't complain. And really, trauma is such a perspective to what you've experienced and how it affects your life. And that we all have it. We all have some form. I've heard some people call it a little t trauma or a big T trauma. Like, there's an expansive array. But what you just said too about the traumatic moments for me in all of that. So there's torture, pornography, rape. And my most difficult moment to overcome was hearing my abuser tell me I wasn't worthy. And it was in a church basement. I have the memory so clearly of her looking down at me and saying, like, you deserve all this. Like, you're not worthy of love. Like, I remember it so clearly. And of all the traumatic events, that seed that was planted so deeply carried with me for so long of that. Okay, I started to overcome the trauma. I got help, started to live a life. People loved me. I had community. I had people that believed me. And yet it was so in there of not being worthy, that I deserved to be treated poorly. Not just treated poorly, treated like horrifically. Like I deserve that. And that memory of her saying that to me, leaning over me, is so strong. Um,
How
and
old were you when she said that?
so we found I was able to tell my parents when I was 3, and it had to be around right around that time. Because I definitely remember us standing up. I remember like the church kids. So I would say it was probably around being 3.
So really formative when you were just sort of learning who you were and what your value was. Little children who know when I cry, I get comforted. When I'm hungry, my parents bring me food. When I get hurt, somebody, takes care of my wound. And at that age, children are really learning that. So to have that sort of seared into your core being, boy, that would absolutely be a challenge. Doable, healable. It's all healable. But
It
that's
is
a
all
challenge.
healable, and that's the celebration, right? Like, so I try to focus more on the thriving part than the trauma, partly to not re-traumatize anyone watching, but we can live in our trauma or we can live in today. And sometimes I don't have that choice. So the days that I have the choice to live in today, I am here, I am present, I am ready, and I am loving it. The days my trauma takes over too much, and that can look for me like a migraine headache or different, I didn't disassociating, which I don't really do anymore, but periodically I feel myself start to go out.
Yeah.
And that means I need to do some enormous self-care and really ground.
Do
But
you have
that
any tricks for that? Like I have little things that I do if I feel a disassociation, or if I start to leave myself. I have little tricks. Do you have little go-tos that help you kind of come back into the right here, right now?
I do. My main go-to is naming colors of things in a room. So
Yeah.
what is blue, and pick 5 objects that are blue, and then move to what is red. So that's usually how I start.
Yeah.
And then when I'm having some control over then my thought, I go to a breathing
Mhm.
and more of all 5 senses.
Yeah.
So what am I smelling? What am I hearing? I'm here now. A lot of self-talk. I do a lot of talk with my little within, little Sarah,
Yeah.
and just remind her that she's safe today. Like, this isn't what was happening before. Because I think so many of our reactions, like a disassociation, is a protection. And disassociation, I didn't even know I had it until my mid 30s. And once I could recognize I was leaving my body, to come back is beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, but those, how do I say that? Like connecting with that inner child to just let her know, like, this isn't then. That was a great coping mechanism. I'm so proud of you. Like,
Yeah.
you did what you needed. And
Yeah.
today we don't need that. Like, I got it. So I hear you. Like, because usually it's something that's sparked inside of me that's triggered,
Mm.
that's telling me I'm unsafe. And I think we all have this, but I think especially having abuse so young, um, that fight flight thing came, that's what really got edged into my brain, was how to survive.
Yeah. Mhm. I love the fact that you go to loving kindness with your little Sarah. What did you call her? Your little?
A little.
Your little. I love that. I know for me that there are not a complete break like multiple personality, but little fractures. So for my early healing years, there was a teenager in me, and there was a really little, like a toddler in me, and there was like an 8-year old. There's about 3 of me, maybe more, but 3. And I could tell who was coming up by what I wanted or needed, or the voice in my head. And my teenager would always show up to protect me, and she was rebellious and badass, and if I wanted to rebel or take somebody on, I knew that was her trying to be protective. If it was the little 5-year-old, or if it was the toddler who just wanted to be held and cry, she wanted to like pull the covers over her head and hide with her stuffed animal. I would recognize those different parts of myself and loved each one. I love you for being protective and being a badass. When people, I remember working with groups, and some of the girls would try to kill, their other self, their wounded self, and like try to have a little funeral for that. And I honor people, whatever they feel like they need to do for their healing. I just offered a different perspective of honoring that side of myself and thanking that side of myself. And I don't let her drive the car, but she's right there in the back seat. I don't want to kick her out of the car. I want to honor her and protect her and have her nice and safe and buckled in the back seat, and have my healthy self be the driver. But I love it that you chose the loving path instead of beating that part of you up.
I think I had some years of beating up different parts of myself, unconscious or subconsciously, like I didn't realize, but I definitely had years, particularly in my 20s, of just not listening, not listening to those parts. And I think what's really important, whether you've had trauma or not, everyone has these parts, right? We all have the little inside us. We all have the teenager. My teenager's a little surly. I love her. She's got a really dark sense of humor. It's the parts of us that we grow with, and everyone has them. And so to me, love is the answer. I can hold on to the pain or the fear, but I live this like closed life. Then I talk a lot about self-love because that's a lot of my journey in what I now offer others. But like that ability to love yourself brings this expansiveness. So instead of breaking up and being mean to those parts, which I did for years, like that negative self-talk of like, you're stupid, you're not good enough, you're not pretty, like, when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? Meaning anything, like the next step to arrive in life. And yet it loves the gentler way, and it's the healing way. And once that gets healed, that path that gets healed, oh my God, it's the hard work, and it is hard work. So you talk about the bridge. I want to say that bridge is scary. Like that bridge is tough. There are times where I felt crazy, especially as I'm talking about my inner child and my teenager. I'm like, I'm a crazy person. I'm officially crazy. Like I'd run my feet up on the wall some nights to like look at running away. I'd start shaking out of the blue. Like I felt the bridge is a scary place to be, because when you're tucking away the trauma and you're using, even if they're unhealthy coping mechanisms, you're surviving, it's working enough. And then you've got to find this new path. And it's a hard path. But the other side is just, I even like my whole body, you saw that, like my whole body just goes like, the other side, there's this peace and serenity in life that I didn't know could exist. I didn't know I could go through life relatively easily, still with life happening, still with pain and hardship and joy and all of these things, but it doesn't encompass me. I'm allowed to be me through life rather than life just having me.
At what point did you recognize that was happening for you? Like, oh.
It was gradual. I don't think I would say the hardest thing about self-love is we can't just be like, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds by this day and I get to see my progress. Like self-love progress looks like I didn't cry after someone said something. Like I set a boundary with someone. Like I bounced back. I didn't replay a conversation in my head. Like the points of self-love growth are so much harder to actually pinpoint. But I do remember one day something had happened, and I can't tell you what because I don't remember, but it was something that would have kept me on a spiral. Like either I made a mistake at work. Making mistakes is a huge one for me. Like perfectionism was something I hid behind. So making mistakes meant I wasn't a good person. That's how I equated. Like send a
Right.
wrong email, I'm a bad person.
Right.
Like that's the level. And one day something happened and I just didn't react the same way. I was just like, that was a mistake. I regret that and moved on. And it's that resilience, I think, seeing over the years of the work, the bounce back is quicker. Things that would traumatize or trigger a trauma years ago might last an hour instead of a week. Um, I think anyone who's a trauma survivor, this is for me lifelong. Um, there are different points. I'm pregnant right now, and we were talking about daycare the other night, and I like went, "Ooh, like we're not doing daycare." Like, nope, nope. Like all this stuff started coming up, and I know that's my next area of work.
Right.
But like there will always be moments in my life where something different happens and I need to re-heal or heal a new layer.
Right.
Um, and the recognition that that's that time comes quicker, it's easier, it's not as scary. That first crossing of the bridge is terrifying. And the later bridges are like a little smaller. Like,
Right.
I got this.
Yeah. I can't even tell you how much I am enjoying this conversation, as it's so great to have a conversation with a fellow survivor sister whose journey that you're speaking is the same language and the same experience as mine, and that is such a gift for me. Like you, it took so long. That's, I think, the thing that I didn't really realize as I started the journey was like how long it was going to take. And it does. It takes a really long time, but it's not all white knuckling. There's just a period of time in the beginning that it's, no fun walking down memory lane and opening, surrendering to allowing those feelings to come up and be respected, not stuffing them, not beating them, not denying them, but allowing those feelings that I didn't get to feel in the moment that they were happening because it wasn't safe, to be able to, in the safety of therapy, if it's one-on-one or group therapy. I love group therapy. I think it's just a great place to process. But to have those feelings, and um, and during those different kinds, and for me it was a smorgasbord of, it was like a potluck of therapy. It's sometimes one-on-one was the great thing, sometimes it was group therapy that was the great thing, sometimes it was energy work, sometimes it was experiential, sometimes it was a weekend retreat, sometimes it was inpatient for a week, sometimes it was, writing, it was art, it was, blah, 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 blah. It was a book. It was, it's like all of these, so many different ways of doing therapy. And I'd be moving along and then life would happen and I would react to it. And I don't know, I guess at the time I thought that I shouldn't, that, I've got, 6 months of therapy in me and I should be fine. And my panic attack should be over and I shouldn't wake up with night terrors anymore and blah, whatever. And or 3 years later or 5 years later, and I would think, well, I shouldn't be, be having some anniversary depression, or I shouldn't be triggered. And then once that got over and I realized this is just a part of the process, it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, but it's still 1 step forward and 1 step forward that I wouldn't have had if I didn't do the work. And then it was, 5 steps forward and 2 steps back, and it just sort of goes along. And like you, it was like I live on a lake, and sometimes the fog is so thick that you literally can't see at the end of the dock. Like it's the dock and then oblivion. And then as the sun rises and it burns through, it's really subtle. It's like all of a sudden you can sort of make out, the tops of the trees, and then more, and then more, and then more. And as you so eloquently said, I'm not as triggered. I'm not thrown for a spiral. I'm not emotionally falling off a cliff because I sent the wrong email, or like you were saying, somebody could, punch me and it would be 6 months and I would say, ow, and totally not why. No, 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 why? I'm having because I was so disassociated from myself. And then it got to the point where you punch me and I get ow immediately.
Mhm.
And I felt things. And it really, it takes time, but when you invest in doing the work from an energy of loving kindness that's expansive
Mhm.
versus constrictive, it just can become this beautiful thing, which sounds unimaginable when you're in the throes of it,
Yeah, completely.
right? But it really does. And there is something that happens along the way that you just get super comfortable in your own skin, and maybe even more comfortable than people who haven't gone through your level of, or a level of trauma, which is so cool. Like, okay, if I would have had a normal childhood and a normal life and whatever, I wouldn't be who I am today. Quirky, crazy chick and all. And I like this person. So for you on the bridge, what would you say to some of the ladies who are in various levels of, who've experienced various levels of trauma, who are in that phase of just starting, maybe the first year of, like maybe 3 weeks to 3 years in it, where they're just starting to work on their addictions, perhaps.
Mhm.
They're just, looking into therapy now. They're just going to their meetings and they're doing their therapy and starting to feel and process. Looking back at that time, what do you wish somebody would have said to you then?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think just hang in there. Just keep
Right?
taking it one step forward. Like, no matter how scary it feels, take that next step and do whatever you have to do within a healthy-ish range to care for yourself in that moment. So, like, and I love how you said on the journey that could be addiction. So, my first step well, I got therapy as a child and it saved my life. I'm sure of that. It helped me have somewhat of a normal childhood with loving parents and community. But in adulthood, I went to therapy a little bit and I wasn't very honest. So that doesn't do a lot of work. But when I got sober, is for me the first time where I started to realize, oh, there could be a peace and serenity I don't know. So for me, my first step was definitely dealing with my alcoholism, and getting some kind of like sea legs, like getting or going from the boat to the ground and you're still wobbly, but like it's time to stand. And then I went to relationship therapy because I noticed like my relationships had issues. I took it these other pieces and before hitting the trauma. Some people don't have that luxury and go straight into trauma because it's what's appearing. But I ate only mac and cheese and ice cream for probably like a significantly way too long of time. It wasn't great for my body, but it was better than drinking. And it was better than sleeping with someone I didn't know. And it was better than other coping mechanisms that would have been very unhealthy, that I had used in the past. And so that gentleness, that if you can be gentle, and just keep going and know that it's going to be okay. And your lake analogy, I like to think of it as you're swimming across the lake and you get in the middle of it and you've got to be on the other side. You can either turn back and have to re-swim, or you can take a rest, float on your back for a little bit and then start again. So thinking of like, how do I keep moving forward without going too far backwards? And then one more thing that I just really want to say is I think that 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 3, that dance we do, it's also, what are you okay with in this moment? So there was a time where, and I just realized this while I was talking, this is what's so cool about the healing journey is like things go and you're like, oh, I don't do that anymore. There was a time where I was past my trauma therapy, like the deep, intense trauma therapy. And every once in a while I'd wake up in the night and I'd have to go check my doors to make sure they were locked and the stove, there was no gas because I have this big fear of fire in the house. And that was okay. Like I would rather get out of bed, check the locks, check the stove, and go back to bed than lay in bed and think about it and obsess. I don't do that today. I haven't done that in like probably a couple years. Like didn't recognize that until this conversation, but I'd say allow yourself the space to do what is okay in that moment. Like what feels good to you. Like to me, checking the doors to make sure they're locked is way easier than anything else that I would do to beat myself up.
I'm watching two adult eagles, big white heads that were probably 50 feet away when you were talking, doing this together. That was magical as you were talking.
And I've got my bird necklace on.
That is so cool. You're so right about do what you need to do in the moment. When you were saying that, I was thinking, I was feeling your joy of knowing that it's been 2 years since you've done that. Like, can we just celebrate that? Right? Just like, praise God, hallelujah. Right?
And it's
And
such a small thing, but
it's
so
such a
huge.
right,
Like it's
so huge. And if you had a stressful week and you had the urge to do that again, so what?
okay.
Right? Instead of going to, oh my God, I'm going backwards, I have to do that again. You haven't had to do that in 2 years. That's so huge.
I'll say in the middle of the night, I haven't had to do that. I've probably done it during the day, but definitely that wake up, startled, make sure I'm
Right.
safe.
That one of the things I learned to do with nightmares, I dreamt in themes. So it was always, something, impending death. The bad guys were coming. And sometimes the bad guys would be in the form of a tornado or something. There's like this terrible thing happening. There's either unseen men coming after me and I'm running and I'm going to door, knocking on the doors and nobody's answering their door. And I had to be like MacGyver to try to figure out how am I going to hide or, save myself. If it was tornadoes, there was always children, and I was trying to gather children and find the safest spot in a basement or in a barn or something. So that was themes for years. And what I would do when I would wake up, hyperventilating and sweating and crying and shaking and all that, was close my eyes and go back to that dream and make it beautiful. And just say, okay, I'm going to reimagine. and I could use my imagination. I could be the Wizard of Oz good witch. I could be Glenda, and just with that beautiful crown and gown and my wand, and I would just make that tornado just turn into daisies. Daisies are just filling the air. Daisies are everywhere. And there you go. I'm dissipating it. So there's little things I would do to not be contaminated, because after I would wake up from those dreams, I would call it a night terror hangover, right? And that I would just feel poisoned by, all the trauma that I went through that night, or exhausted from all the fighting that I did that night. And for me, it was putting my feet on the earth and imagining that my feet and my toes were roots, and they were going down, 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 down. And all of the trauma, all of the energy was just going down, and my top of my head was like a sunroof. And all this light and love is just, and to me it was like a smoky house. And when you open up all the doors and windows, and there's this beautiful gentle breeze, and it just airs everything out. So grounding and just connecting and aligning and letting everything go, and I could just shake it off and have a productive day, instead of my entire day or two or three being ruined by a series of night terrors that just um, dictated my life. And it was perpetual. One panic attack would lead to another panic attack, would lead to and each panic attack was 2 or 3 hours worth of adrenaline, and my whole day is gone and unable to eat any food. And it was just awful. And learning these little tricks really helped. What are some tricks that you learned to do that just helped you during that earlier part of the healing and self-growth process?
Well, I love the visualization you just did, because I think part of these tips is taking our power back, right? Having some control, like, because I didn't have control as a child and what happened to me, or in adult sexual assault. I didn't have that control. So revisualizing helps my brain to then like start to believe something different. I get to rewire those beliefs. My go-to is sitting in the shower. It is my number one go-to. I sit in the shower and I feel the water
Mhm.
just come over me, a very hot shower. And there were days in the depths of it that I would shower 3 times a day. And I was like, we'll worry about water waste and stuff later. Like, this is what I gotta do. Taking a nap, for me, that's one way I can escape. So sometimes it can be an unhealthy, and other times it's just what you said, that adrenaline's been going, my adrenal glands are sparked. Like, I have a lot of physical chronic illness that I believe is stemmed from the abuse. So I have to take care of that body. So listening, like if I need to take a nap and I have the ability to do that, just do it.
Mhm.
Um, the shower is definitely number one. Keeping a spiritual practice for me has been really key, which is not faith-based, because I've had some issues with
Right.
institutions, even where my abuse came from. I've looked at it a lot. And I believe that churches are very helpful to so many people, but my spirituality practice is pretty private. So prayer and reliance on a higher power, universe, some kind of energy of love.
Mhm.
Um, Going to that, lighting candles
Mhm.
um, grounds me. So lighting a candle and just sitting with it for a second. Um, those are the main ones. And then the mac and cheese, which is kind of an unhealthy coping mechanism. But again, I'll take it. Like,
Uh, do you have like a routine that you find is supportive for you?
the routine that's supportive for me. So I always kind of giggle with what you said about like all the different therapies. At this point, I always say, they say it takes a village to raise a child. And I say, I need the city of Manhattan as my support system. Like, I'm all about support. like,
I need the city of Manhattan. That's so funny.
like, let's like bring it all in. Today, I don't have a specific like ritual or practice in my day other than connecting with my higher power at some point in the day. Um, Remembering to breathe. For me, that's a big one. I hold my breath a lot. So I'll be working or something and realize that I don't breathe. So connecting to my breath through the day. And that gentleness, I bring the gentle kindness into every aspect of my life as possible, which some days is easier than others. Like I am so human, which means I am completely imperfect. And some days I'm all love and sunshiny, and other days not so much. But you know, I will always, oh, my necklace is totally falling. I'm just gonna take that real quick. Um, so yeah, just that continued practice and reaching out for help, having a community of support, for me, that's been a lot with women of really like those women that are just will carry you when you need it.
Can I ask you about that? I want to know for you from you from on the women making women friends. I know that if you walk to the beat of a different drum and you are promiscuous, or bisexual, or you didn't grow up in the same neighborhood as the people around you. Like there's a lot of different, if you look different, if you talk different, I mean, there's a whole laundry list of things that make a woman ostracized from other women that could potentially be your tribe. So how did you deal with becoming healthier, evolving and aligning with your true self, which is healthier than what you were manifesting, you know um, and your friendships start to get on shaky ground because you're growing and maybe they're not. How did you deal with moving away from some of the dysfunctional friends, and how did you deal with attracting healthier friends?
That's a
Does
great
that, does
question.
that make sense?
Yeah, I think that a lot of women, I'm going to speak from my experience because I don't want to put this on anyone, but I think we ostracize ourselves out of other women groups,
Yeah.
um, because I don't know why. I think that goes to the worth and the shame and all of that and that fear of being seen. So I particularly see this, I think, with trauma survivors and people in the recovery community. So if you're healing from substance use disorder, that a lot of times it was easier to hang with the guys, like to break open a beer. There's not trauma. You think there's not trauma. There's like, it feels easier. The promiscuity side, like there's some self worth coming from that, some
Mhm.
validation. And I think that the first hurdle is to stop self ostracizing, to start feeling like you could belong with women. Um, and then friendships have definitely changed for me. There are the friends that we continue to grow with, which happens to be my business partner. We talked about this in our live earlier today, so it's kind of funny that we had to find a new balance because a lot of times she was a caretaker for me. And then when I started to get healthy, I needed to relearn, like we had to re-establish our friendship. So it either grows or it goes.
Mhm.
And so I think there's a season, a reason, or a lifetime. Said that in
Right.
the wrong order. Reason, season, or lifetime. And each friendship I've had, I think losing female friendships is one of the most painful things. There's something that feels different than like a breakup. It's like a breakup times 10. There's like something about like this person has seen me for fully who I am, and now we're not friends. And I've struggled with that in my healing journey because I think it's more of a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And we come into each other's lives and it works then, and then it stops working. So I think to start not taking that so personally, which easier said than done,
Right.
way easier. And then some people we grow together with. And then I think start finding the people that you see that are shining, the people that you want to like be around, and taking the risk to saying like, hey, it's harder in COVID, but do you want to go for a walk or do you want to get coffee? And as an adult, that feels really bizarre. It feels like that's just silly, but I am shocked how many, particularly of my clients, don't, oh, I can't hear you. Nope. Oh, wait, I hear that noise.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there's a weird buzz with it.
Can you hear me now?
I can, but it's a weird sound.
How about that?
Yeah, it's got some kind of like buzz feedback.
Is that better? Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to end today, but we're gonna do this. I want you
Oh,
back.
there. That's
Oh,
working.
oh, good. What a great conversation I'm having with you. Little will anybody realize that we've had like 40 minutes of technology issues. Never in my life have I had so many different technology stuff happen. And this is one of the best conversations, regardless. Like this, I just love who you are. I'm looking forward to you coming on next Tuesday to talk with the survivors. I can, I'm just so blessed. We were just talking about women friendships, and one of the indicators for me that I'm must be doing something right is the kind of women that I have in my life.
Amen.
Right?
Oh my God, yes.
Just I'm like, wow, these are the people when I was a little girl and a teenager, a young woman that I really wished that I would have had. And like you were saying, you said, we have to stop self-sabotaging ourselves and criticizing ourselves in the world of friendships. And I would agree with you. I think that the greatest heartache for me wasn't the men, it was the women that I lost, and learning how to renegotiate. And now as somebody who's who's been in the healing and self-growth journey, really being that friend that I wanted is a boomerang. That's the secret, is that you really have to embody. And you were saying that most of the time you're able to be loving and kind, and that is like the energy. And I wanted to say to you, when you said that, you really come across that way. I mean, just the energy around you as you are speaking is such a loving, kind, compassionate energy. It really is. If that is how you are behaving and how you wish to be, let me just tell you, as a stranger in your life, that is so self-evident.
Thank you. And
Was
I
you
just want to also say taking in compliments is still something I'm working on. So like I want to like say something snarky back.
just say thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
say thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
say
Yeah.
thank you. We are indeed, perfectly imperfect human beings. We are spiritual beings having this human experience, and it can be a mother.
Seriously, I often say, like, if we do have soul contracts, I don't know what my soul was thinking coming into this.
Right.
I'm gonna have a talk, like,
Yeah.
after this human experience.
Right. And I look back during all of the years that I wanted to die, all of the years that I'd be driving down the highway, and there'd be an 18 wheeler coming beside me. And I would think, wouldn't it be cool if that 18 wheeler just came over on my lane and a quick kill, like karma free. So I wouldn't be reincarnated because I did it myself. I wouldn't go to hell because I did it myself. It would just be a karma free. And I would just wish for that. And I wish for that into my 40s. Just, like I didn't want to do it myself, but it would be okay if like this whole so much work. Sometimes I felt like going through the day was like the never ending story, and Atreyu is going through the swamp of sadness in that movie, Never Ending Story. It was just hard, just getting through the day was hard. And sometimes having to take 3 showers as one of your go-tos is just like, really, this is my life, is managing panic and anxiety. This is not life. This is like enduring. I feel like I am just tolerant. I'm just enduring life. And now the last almost 20 years, so 20 years of abuse, 20 years of healing and self-growth, and now nearly 20 years of thriving, you know like I've never been happier in my life.
Mhm.
You're gonna have a baby,
I am now
like
married to my soulmate, like to a man that, oh, is a partner. He is my best friend. He is a partner. He is more than I would have ever dreamed for myself, and certainly more than I was bringing into my life, just from where I was at. And that
how do you think you attracted him into your life?
we crossed paths for a few years before we ever dated. So we were kind of in each other's realm. When we started a friendship, I think it was timing of healing.
Yeah,
When he came into my life, I was ready.
yeah.
And I thought I was ready at 23. I want to make that very clear if this goes publicly anywhere. I wanted a marriage and a kids. And like, I've been that woman that always wanted that. I had a successful career too. Like, I wanted it all. And we got married at 38 for me. That's when my soulmate came. And it was timing, because I think if he had come even a year sooner, even though I'd been doing the work, I wasn't ready to let that love in. Like,
Mm.
I had learned to love myself, but learning to like have a man show up with pure like kindness, attention, like, I'm here and I see you. And I like, he knew my background story, like he knew about me before. So it wasn't like I had to go and have those awkward conversations of like, oh, by the way,
Yeah,
like sometimes like I have these panic attacks or things. Like,
right, right.
he saw me and he loved me. And I was finally at the place where I could let that in. And yeah, now we have our little one, and I'm launching the self-love course. Like, I
Oh,
like next to him last night and like, I'm living the life I want.
please say that about your course, because this is going to be out there, and I would love for people to go to your website to take your course. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please, before some technology thing happens and we're doomed?
Absolutely. My computer's got like 26% battery. So we're getting in the home stretch. Um, Launching Self Love 101 with my business partner and also best friend, who we've worked through those issues through the years.
And
Um,
who is that? Will we know
her name
that?
is Sarah Wilkinson, and she is in Saugerties, New York. She has a yoga studio there. It's all online right now with COVID. And we've been doing retreats together for the past 4 years. And we decided to create this company because we see in retreats what can happen, that evolving. And so Love Yourself came out of this idea that everyone deserves self-love. Everyone deserves this access. It doesn't matter your background, your socioeconomic status, race, gender, like we all need self-love and we need to come together for it. And by doing that, we can heal not only ourselves, but the world. So Self Love 101 is our first course that's online. It's self-paced, 4-week course that talks about self-love in that way that is not the easier stuff. We're not talking about the bubble baths and the chocolates. It's the how do you set boundaries, coming into your body, that self-awareness, awareness of feelings, forgiveness of self and others.
Mm.
And then the last week will be some practical goal setting and moving forward. This is our pilot program. So we are offering it at the cheapest rate it'll ever be, which I like to say for people now. But being that our belief is also that socioeconomic status should never keep you from worth, we have a scholarship program. We also have tiered pricing. So you can do a community rate. If you're able to give more, you can do a pay it forward, which helps the community rate. So we are willing to work with anyone that needs this and wants it.
Mm.
And so that launches on March 13th is what the day that the
Yeah.
official first lesson will come out. And enrollment's open till March 20th. And website, loveyourselfevents.com/selflove101.
Mm. Beautiful. So, and that's how they can reach you if they want to chat with you too.
They can reach me there. Or my other business is Sarah Kelly Coaching. And if you look at either, there's a contact form on there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Is there anything that you wish you would have said, that you wanted to, anything burning that you wanted to leave us with?
Yay you. Like
Yay,
anyone watching
you.
this is yay you. I
Yeah.
feel like, we talked about the hard part, and the celebration. And at the end is like celebrate every moment that's a success.
Mm.
So, I'm a big fan of giving virtual gold stars, like,
Mhm.
celebrate those tiny successes, and be gentle. Like, if you're even watching this or on this journey of self love or healing, whatever your journey is, like, go you. Like, that's huge. I think most people shy away from it because it feels easier to not approach this stuff, but it's actually just the gentler, softer way
Mm.
through the scariness.
Mm. Okay. Well, do you know the sex of your baby yet?
We're having a girl.
You're having a girl. Oh my God. And have you picked a name?
We have, but I'm not going to share that publicly yet.
Mhm. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm so happy for you. She is, can you imagine? I just wish for all children to be brought into this world by such a loving soul, right? Just conceived in love, brought into love, welcomed, wanted. Just, just love that. Just love that. And you. Thank you so much. And I look forward to next week that we get, well, a week and a half from now that we get to connect again. And thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for how you have gone from the bumpy road getting started in this world to transforming that into being a beacon of light and love to shine on others, to help them be a mirror of love and light to themselves. That is what a beautiful gift you're giving. Thank you for all of that, and thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me.